We're here at the Midwest LSA Expo, Mount Vernon, Illinois, about an hour east of St. Louis. This is the 10th anniversary of the show, and one of the reasons why we like it is what we just did. We just landed in the airplane I'm standing next to here. This is the Aeroprakt A32, not 22, A32 Vixxen, and we did a video pilot report here because this airport allows us to do everything we need to do to get you a great video, and I think you're going to be pleased with what you see. So, this is not the replacement for, but the follow-on, if you will, to the A22, which is a very similar looking airplane, but as you look at the detail on this airplane here, you begin to see it's more streamlined. It's a little sleeker. It's been aerodynamically enhanced. One way you know right away, in the A22, the center section dipped down a little bit. Now that's straight across. That's actually going to provide just a little bit more lift up there. And as you look at the top of the wings, you'll see that there's some bulge where the fuel tanks are. That's because this has the long-range fuel tanks on it. 32 gallons, I believe, is the number, compared to 24 for the regular, which then would have a completely level service on the wing. But in various ways, the aircraft has been made more sleek. First of all, up here at the nose, right at this point right here on the A22, there's an opening here that vents out some air, and cooling is a big deal in airplanes if you don't already know that, so that's why they did that. Here they've sealed this all up. They've gone to a single opening right here in front of my hand, and that now means they have a plenum inside the engine compartment, which is a fancy word to just say they direct the air to where it needs to go in the engine to assist cooling. Of course, this is a Rotax 100 horsepower ULS engine with the dual carburation on it. It does have liquid cooling, so it's taking care of some of that already, but it always pays to enhance the engine compartment to help cooling, and indeed it worked. It's a warm day out here. We got to be about 90 degrees Fahrenheit and something like that anyway, and I never saw this thing go over about 185 degrees at any time, even while idling for a while as we taxied out to the runway and got ready to go. In flight, we saw numbers like 150 and like that. So those are very low values, which speaks to this cleanup of the engine compartment and the intake of the air in the beginning. But that's not all. And the top of the wing I already mentioned too. The doors have been streamlined a little more than they were before, but some of the main effect is back there on the aft of the fuselage, where on the A22, the earlier model, it tapers a little more with angles and sharper lines and so forth. It was always fine, but it wasn't as fast as this airplane, and one of the ways they've been able to increase the speed is by streamlining that amount of fuselage back there. As a result of what they did and the way the tail is constructed, the tail is a little lower on this airplane than it is on the other one, and one of the big changes that they made, which I experienced in flight, is this now has a full flying stabilator, which the other aircraft did not. So, what that translates to, we'll get into when we get into some handling qualities, but it's all a part of the effort. The gear legs are very similar, but streamlined nicely. From here out on the wing, all the way out to the tip, is exactly the same wing, same span, same cord, same everything. What you're seeing that's different is all from this point to the fuselage and the cockpit area and so forth. Very, very nice though. I'm very impressed with this airplane. So let me tell you a little bit some numbers about how that worked out so you get some ideas how successful their aerodynamic streamlining was. We did an upwind and downwind run. We were seeing right at 130, and that's miles an hour, not knots, 130 miles an hour, which is 115 knots, something like that. We're very close to the maximum speed of the airplane. That is about 25 miles an hour faster than the Aeroprakt A22. So there's some of the benefit of that. It goes significantly faster, very near top of the category, same engine. Now this has the cab prop on it. They also offer other props like the Duke Hélice and the warp drive, and I don't remember the numbers that I saw in the A22, what prop that had on it, but clearly that's about 105, 110 mile an hour maximum airplane. This one's quite a bit faster. However, that didn't change the stall. The stall is still very, very low. In fact, in flight, we were seeing in the 30s, and this is miles an hour, so that's down into at least the low 30 knot or maybe high 20 knot stall speed. That's in-flight speeds at maximum slow flight. Quite remarkable. Stalls, we were holding slow flight at in the 45 to 50 range. You could fly all day like that. You could loiter like that. So for example, this aircraft could be good for doing ground spotting, for looking for lost children, that kind of thing. It would do loiter flying quite well, and at which point it's burning very little fuel too. We saw fuel burns maximum about 6 gallons an hour. That's at the high-speed runs we were doing with throttle at about 5,500 RPM. When we back off in the pattern here, I'm pointing behind me because the pattern is the left pattern on the runway 5 we use today. I would come back all the way to about 4,000 RPM, and at that, we were not descending. This airplane, here's another example of how aerodynamic cleanliness works. The airplane just didn't want to come out of the sky. It's almost a little challenging to land with no flaps. I had to use slips to get down, and then when I got down, it just wanted to float and float and float, and I kept having to raise the nose more and more. So clearly you would land this airplane with 15 or probably 20 degrees of flaps. That's 1 and 2 notches. So their flaps don't deploy very deeply, but they are quite effective. However, when you deploy flaps, or when you retract flaps, you get almost no pitch change. A slight perceptible change in pitch, almost nothing. And that's not trying to control to keep it level. That was just doing what we did, and there it is. Worked very, very effectively. I'm impressed with the lack of pitch change when the flaps are put on. What that tells me is the aerodynamics of the flap design is also good, as with the rest of it. All this huge expanse here, big windscreen here, lots of visibility up front. First of all, I could see forward very, very well, and I could see all around me, and you can even look aft and see the entire tailplane through some glass in the aft end of the turtle deck, basically back there. So very impressive that way. Okay, let's pop the doors open here. Single latch. Just one small example of the thoroughness of the design qualities, but even the latch mechanisms and the parts that are used right here by my hand to latch the door, very nicely executed. Almost all of this is aluminum, including the leading edges of both the wing and the tail. The aft end of the wing, the aft end of the tailplane, and the rudder are fabric covered. Again, very expertly done. The airplane is finished very nicely, and that's kind of why I wanted to come to the inside, to look at the inside. The seats fold forward. Back here beside Dennis's hat, you've got a fabric area back here which has luggage below it that can hold 66 pounds back there, so that's quite a bit of baggage capacity. Of course, depending on your weight and balance, you do have to look at that as you do in any airplane. But also a little bit of a pouch in the back of the seat, so you got a place you can put things back there. Up on the root, right where my hand is reaching back here to touch the root of the airplane, there's a couple little pockets up there where you can put things. And they haven't even forgot the very, very important cup holder here inside the airplane. You got one on each side, so those of you that are taking a water bottle along with you, which is always a good thing to do, got a place you can put it where it's out of your way, won't get under your feet, won't cause any problems. Now, the seats do adjust. These seats are new, so I don't know if the camera can see that angle down there, but there's a wire V, and you pinch it with your hand, and when you do, then you can move the seats back and forth. Now, this has a Y stick in the center with dual brakes, one brake on each side of the Y joystick, and then throttle handles on each side. Where the yoke used to come out in the A32 is where the throttle now comes out. I'm going to put my hand right on it here so you can kind of see where it is. And that proved to be a very comfortable place. They've got the right kind of handle arrangement there that your hand just sort of rests on it quite nicely. And the same thing with the joystick in the center. It's kind of right where you would want it to be. So on either side of the what are sometimes called the B pillars, if this is the A pillar up here, then that's the B pillar back there. And you can see near the top, right by the gas strut, that by the way does a very nice job of holding this. I'm not going to let it come up too fast, but it wants to open the door nicely for you and hold it out of your way. But up there at the top you see a red handle, one on the other side as well. Those are fuel shutoffs. This particular airplane here has got more than 30 gallons of gas, so it can really go some distance. I'm guessing in the neighborhood of 1,000 miles, especially if you're flying solo. It's very likely you'd want to burn more gas off on the side you're on to track it a little truer, but you can adjust that however you need to adjust it as you go. So I mentioned that those are on the side. There is no center control for that, but let's look at some things that are in the center of the aircraft. We got the Y stick there, of course, I mentioned that earlier. On the left side, facing the same way I am, just as though I was in the airplane, on the left side of the joystick is the elevator control, trim control I should say. On the right side is choke, and in the center is a parking brake. Pull on the hand grip, two hand grips, each hand grip has a brake on it, pull one or the other on, and then set the parking brake, which actuates a hydraulic valve and holds the aircraft in position. Just aft of the joystick is where the parachute handle is located. Now, that's an option. Not everybody may choose that. This one has a ballistic parachute on it, which I always like. I'm a big believer in those. And right in the center, you would do kind of a bicep motion to pull up on that handle. I think you could probably do a very good job of it. Those handles take quite a pull. You need to have them in a place that you can get a good grip on them, and I think that'll work out just fine. And this one has the Y stick in it, but you can have a joystick in, a yoke in this as well. In which case the yoke will go where the throttle is, which is right about here by my hand, and that's where the yoke will come out, and then the throttle will be in the center behind the ballistic parachute handle, up a little higher, he says. I like this configuration a lot. It makes getting in very easily. If you're one of those people who looks at an airplane and goes, I don't know if I could get in that thing, let me tell you, this one's pretty easy. I don't normally demonstrate this, but I'm going to go ahead and do it here. I just turned around, lowered my head, get inside, pull one leg in, pull the other leg in. That was pretty easy. I'm reasonably flexible. Some are more or less than me. You won't have any trouble at all getting out. It's a piece of cake. One out, the other hand out. One thing you lack that the A22 has, and Dennis actually misses a little bit, there was some structure inside the A22, some steel support tubes, and one of those was right about here above my head, and he used to use it to help himself out. Well, you don't have that anymore. Part of the cleanup took away some of that stuff. It enhances visibility. It does not allow you that grip that some people may have gotten used to. So inside the aircraft, seats are adjustable. Seats fold forward as you saw. Lots of room in the back to put things. Headsets attach in the back so the wires can be kind of out of your way and you're not messing with a tangle of wires. In this airplane here, he's got the Dynon HDX, which is a wonderful, beautiful piece of equipment. For those on a little tighter budget, he advises that the MGL brand, which is another wonderful brand, they can lower the price a little bit. But he's also got one coming in with the Garmin G3X. So Dennis will supply the airplane as a special flight sport aircraft. This one has its approval now. He will sell you that airplane as an ELSA, meaning you don't really have to build anything. So you can do your own maintenance on it, for example, so you can change things on it if you want. But if you either keep it the way it was or make changes that the factory will approve, then you can go back to SLSA, which you might want to do when you sell the airplane, because anything you buy, you're selling someday, and the next person might want it to be able to be used in a flight school environment, and that requires an SLSA. So that's a lot about it. They're about a 6-month maximum delay. He's gotten them faster than that. The company is gearing up from 100 aircraft a year to 130 aircraft a year, which strikes me as a reasonable increase in their capacity so they don't get things out of hand and so quality doesn't suffer, because quality is very good in this airplane. And so there'll be more airplanes available, but he can get them for you pretty quick, and there's lots of customization you can do, including paint colors and other things, way more than I'm qualified to tell you or than you want to hear at this point. But let me just say, if you want to go to aeropractusa.com, you can get in touch with Dennis. You can see lots and lots of pictures and information, and you can also make contact with Dennis Long, the distributor, and he can tell you more details about what you'll need to know then. He's also very active on Facebook, so look for Aeroprakt USA on Facebook. You'll see lots of things that he does there, and where I first saw this particular airplane that I was privileged to fly today. You can find lots more about all the Aeroprakts. As I said, I visited the factory. I've flown several of their different models, but you can find them and lots of other aircraft in the affordable aviation range on BuyDanJohnson.com. Thanks for joining me here at Mount Vernon,